Author's presentation by Lisa Faust. The genre selected is realistic fiction for the age group 7 to 9 years old. Realistic fiction includes stories that could actually happen to people and animals in real life. Realistic fiction offers children perspectives of their own world, everyday adventures, as well as gaining strength through relationships, especially during challenging times. Realistic fiction includes stories about living and growing in a diverse community. Chose the authors Elena K. Arnold and Trudy Ludwig. While researching authors for this project, I realized I laughed, I cried, and I got very excited as I looked through the information on these two authors. I knew I'd made the right choice. The importance of real issues in our world sparks an interest in writers like Elena K. Arnold and Trudy Ludwig because they get it. Children deserve to be informed of the big picture, not just protected from what might be different than what the adults in their lives understand. These authors introduce inclusion and acceptance from the start, and maybe we won't have such hate later in life. Elena K. Arnold. Elena Arnold is a children's book author as well as a young adult author. She currently teaches at the Hamline University MFA in writing for children and young adults. Elena Arnold has earned the Junior Library Guild, which is a commercial company devoted to young reading literature. She's earned the Prince Honors, which represents the best books written for young adults. She's also earned the Moonbeam Children's Book Award, which represents the year's best children's books, as well as the Westchester Fiction Award for exemplary literature. Arnold experienced life being known as weird and unique as she grew up, not knowing until adulthood that she actually has been diagnosed with autism. Many of her stories come from her life experiences. Trudy Ludwig. Trudy Ludwig's early career was in advertising and marketing copywriting. She was writing at the time, but she was never confident in her work until her daughter came home and was experiencing bullying at school. This was a traumatic event for the entire family, and after this, she knew that children needed the tools to deal with this serious topic. She's won many awards, only several are listed here. She won the IBPA Gold Benjamin Franklin Award, which is an award for excellence in book publishing, the Galette Burgess Children's Book Award for outstanding books that inspire imagination and creativity, as well as support lifelong reading. She won the Napa Gold Medal and the Mom's Choice Awards for the highest quality children's books, as well as the Moonbeam Children's Book Gold Award for the year's best children's books. Both of the chosen authors have very similar elements of writing for a young audience. Both of them focus on real life issues such as inclusion and bullying. Themes of their stories contain life messages and at the same time are interesting to keep a child's attention. The illustrations are beautiful in all of their books that I've seen. The messages are relayed, but they're not overpowering, coming across as a lecture. So the story itself tells the message, leaving a lasting impression. Both authors utilize likable characters to tell their stories, and the characters are very important for the impact of the message being relayed to young readers. The engaging stories provide insight on everyday real-world issues, helping young children to realize the social injustices and how they can play a role in being a positive change in everyday decisions and interactions. These stories, while sensitive, are told in a gentle and age-appropriate way. A Boy Called Bat is a story by Elena K. Arnold. And in a blog titled My Beautiful Brain, written by Arnold in June of 2023, she explains why she wrote this book. Boy Called Bat is about a boy who has sensitivities, but Arnold, while telling the story, leaves out the label of autism. In her blog, she states, Bat is me. I wrote Bat because I have felt and done so many of the things Bat has done. I haven't yet raised an orphan skunk kit, but I sure would if I had the chance. But the other things, the sensory sensitivities, the miscommunications, the fascination to the point of compulsion with the things I love, these things are mine. But as a child of the 1980s and a girl, though I was labeled by my teachers as someone who had a hard time finding and keeping friends, and as not living up to my potential, and by other kids as weird, no one ever labeled me as autistic. So because I hadn't been given such a name from an expert, it felt inauthentic to me to share my own deep understanding of how my brain functions. My beautiful, wonderful brain. I love my brain. Arnold recently, like I mentioned, found out she does have autism. This was after she had written this book. She went back and forth about whether or not to post that blog. She was scared that people wouldn't believe her. She said she just wrote this book from what was going on in her mind, and she was being real. Page from A Boy Called Bat. Bat was what almost everyone called Bixby Alexander Tam for a couple of reasons. First, because the initials of his name, B, A, and T, spelled Bat, but there were maybe other reasons. Bat's sensitive hearing, for one. He didn't like loud sounds. What was so unusual about that? And if Janie's old earmuffs happened to make an outstanding muffling device, was it that funny if he liked to wear them? It was also the way he sometimes flapped his hands when he got nervous or excited or was thinking about something interesting that the other kids at school seemed to think was funny. There's also the fact that bats have wings which they flap. So, given the initials and the earmuffs and the flapping, the nickname had stuck. The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig also contains sensitive topics. This story introduces a boy who nobody seems to notice. One day a new kid, Justin, joins the class. Brian's the first to make sure he feels welcome. Nobody else seems to notice Brian. Justin ends up showing the other students how simple acts of kindness, as well as empathy, can allow everyone to feel included. From one of the pages of The Invisible Boy. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Justin says, Mrs. Carlotti said we could have up to 3 people in our group. We've only got 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him be with us. Emilio says, okay, I guess. A selection taken from Goodreads says, this book from esteemed author and speaker Trudy Ludwig and acclaimed illustrator Patrice Barton. This gentle story shows how small acts of kindness can help children to feel included and allow them to flourish. Any parent, teacher, or counselor looking for material that sensitively addresses the needs of quieter children will find The Invisible Boy a valuable and important resource. Jean is another work by Elena K. Arnold of a not-so-typical child who befriends a not-so-typical scrawny chicken. This is one of the first early chapter books in her series about Starla Jean. I do have to mention the talented illustrator A.N. King, who brings these stories to life. This story, like many from Arnold, comes from a real-life story about her son who had found a chicken at the park. In the first chapter, as we meet Starla, we notice immediately her spark. She tells us, there are certain things you have to do if you're going to catch a chicken. Trust me, I'm a chicken expert. I wasn't always a chicken catching expert until last Thursday. I didn't know much about chickens at all. And in the illustrations, they show this scrawny chicken running wild as Starla stalks him from the bushes, determined to catch him and make him her pet after her father told her, if you can catch it, you can keep it. I came across this chapter reading that I took a snip of and posted here of Elena K. Arnold reading the first chapter herself. I always enjoy hearing the author read their version of the story. Another book of a sensitive topic, this one regarding bullying, behavior, and friendships, by Trudy Ludwig, called My Secret Bully. This story, set around children, relatable for targeted readers, teaches what relational bullying is. The two main girls in the story have been friends since kindergarten, and nobody would know that Katie bullies Monica since they're friends. But Katie uses the threat of isolation, mean words, and gestures as her weapons of choice. From the book. We've spent a lot of time together because we like doing the same kinds of things, making perfumes with flowers picked from my yard, playing soccer in the rain and sharing secrets, spying on our bossy know-it-all brothers. I love being around Katie when she's nice to me, but there are times when she's not. With the help of her mom, Katie steps up and faces her friend about how she deserves to be treated. This story is another by Arnold of real struggles relatable to many children. She gently handles tough subjects with grace as she tells this one of a child's life after the death of his father, relocating to a new home, two children who are immediately furious with each other due to their own life circumstances don't initially give each other a chance when they meet, as the two become neighbors. Once school starts, things begin to change as they discover their beautiful connection. Alder's life was rather unextraordinary. He lived in his comfortable house, surrounded by the things he loved, the music, the bathtub, the pink couch and the puzzles, the clackers, and Mort, with the walnut tree's gentle shadow, and with his wonderful, though sometimes embarrassing, mother at 15 Rollingwood Drive. This was true, at least until late summer, when the girl moved in next door, and Alder, for the first time in his relatively quiet life, experienced what it felt like to be truly furious with someone. The Enemy by Trudy Ludwig is a true story. It was adapted from um, a memoir of a name to a number, a Holocaust survivor's autobiography. The story of a boy who endures the loss of his family. He's held captive and in a Nazi prison camp. Somebody on the other side, the enemy, risked her life every single day, bringing him gifts, which in turn gave him the will to survive. What I liked about this story was that the author didn't focus on the horrors of the prison camps, but instead focused on the hope and the truth that not everyone is filled with hate. And this story is another one that focuses on the importance of how you treat someone. From the story. Just when I no longer had the strength or will to make it through another day, something amazing happened. I received a gift from a stranger, but not just any stranger, a stranger that I thought was my enemy. And on the following page, he explains when it started. He was working in a factory. And there's a sign that reads, "Do not look at the prisoners. Do not talk to the prisoners. Do not give anything to the prisoners. If you do, you will be doomed." Something I thought was interesting, just like the gifts from the enemy that was adapted from a true story or another story. Elena Arnold also adapted a book from the popular Little Red Riding Hood and made it her own. And that one, though, is a young adult story. But I thought that was interesting that both of them used that technique. While these two authors have many similarities, they do have differences in the reasons that they write these kinds of stories. Arnold says that she doesn't write to teach lessons, she writes to transform her own painful experiences into art, to celebrate just being human. Ludwig said she doesn't think her stories are new lessons, but she believes in the importance of telling them again and again. After her daughter being bullied at the age of 7, that traumatic experience for the family is what caused Ludwig to step out of her own doubts as a writer, knowing she needed to ensure that all children and families had access to current lessons on being a good human.